Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in, like, subscribe, and all the other stuff in between. Today I'm doing the last segment for now regarding the overlapping technology, but I'm focusing on some guns that really transcended a lot of the other technology that I've talked about so far. We have to kick off the list with the 1911. Now, this is one of the TSIS US Army ones. This has been a loaner gun that I've passed off to friends and everything else, so this gun has been shot, abused, and outside of just like some scratches along the feeding ramp, and from where someone dropped it apparently, it has been one heck of a 1911. But we're not talking about gun reviews here, we're talking about lasting power and issued firearms. So the 1911 is undoubtedly probably the longest issued sidearm of the U.S. military. From 1911, we're going into World War I all the way past Vietnam into 1987, the 1911 was the issued firearm of the U.S. military. And it wasn't until 1987 that finally we saw the adoption of a new 9mm pistol, and that was, of course, the Beretta M9. Now, the Beretta M9, I've heard people that have served, it's a love-hate relationship. They got one that either rattled and was unreliable or just was just not a great gun, or people loved them. So the Beretta M9, in my opinion, I love it, but I've never had to trust my life to it in a sandy situation. So there is that. But it had a short shelf life in comparison to some of the other platforms that we've talked about. Even going back to my previous video looking at the M16 and the evolution of it all the way to the Block 1s, Block 2s, and then the URGIs, like there's been M4s, I forgot that one. The M16 platform continued to evolve and has pretty much been in service for, well, the last, I can't do math, but since Vietnam. Now, one that almost didn't make it on the list, but I felt like it needed to, was the Mossberg 590A1. So this was adopted in 87 or 89, and I thought that it was phased out, but I looked and did some research, and this firearm is still being issued to this day. And there are some other shotguns that have been adopted, such as the Benelli M4. However, for pump-action shotguns, this is the actual only officially adopted pump-action that I could find. Now, the 870 is an approved piece of gear that can be issued, but it's not officially adopted. So the 590A1, it's one of my favorite shotguns, mainly for my ability to tear it down and rebuild it, because I've had to work on way too many shotguns in my life. But so I've became very intimate with the Mossberg 590, and so again, we're not doing gun reviews here, but I think there is a reason that the 590 has had lasting and staying power with the military. Now, another kind of controversial one in terms of evolution or transcendence of throughout the years is the 226. The 226, in my opinion, is an amazing platform weapon system in general. But when it was adopted, it was a very similar version to this. This is the West German SIG. We have the stamped steel. We have the internal extractor. And this eventually would turn into the Mark 25. And the Mark 25 is similar to this firearm right here, which is a 226R, except for a maritime coating and a couple other modifications. So there was some modifications done to this, but it is still an approved issue piece of gear to this day, along with now SEALs will use the Glock 19. There's also a USP, but I don't currently own one of those, so we're going to skip over it. But you can't deny the Mark 23 and the USP is an amazing, if not badass looking platform. But the 226, again, to me, it is an amazing piece of equipment. I would love to have one of these with like an optic system on it, but that's neither here nor there. Now, last one on the list, the MP5. Now, it has been phased out in terms of, well, I'm trying to think of the right word there. Anyway, the B&T actually has taken the place now, and this is being phased out. But the MP5 gained notoriety during the Iranian embassy event in, well, 1980. And after that, it became a thing of lore, culture. It became part of my generation's culture, at least. So this is a POF 5. Again, I'm not doing gun reviews here, but this gun has been amazingly reliable, and I've done zero work to it. I didn't even clean it till 5,000 rounds. But nonetheless, the MP5 here, staying power, lasting power, and is still being issued, but is being phased out for the B&T, which, again, the B&T is an amazing platform. Out of the choices that have been made, out of guns that have been replaced, I have no hate on the B&T winning it over the SMG, over the MP5. The SIG 320, I own a couple, Flex Raider and just a basic 320. The Flex Raider I trust because I have a manual safety on it. Now, like with all the 320 I didn't agree with when it was adopted. No reason outside of why. There was really, anyway, not talking about that in this video. That is it for this video on the overlapping technology, because these guns right here that I've went over have kind of transcended a lot of other developments in firearm history and technology and had some lasting power. The Beretta here is probably the only one that didn't have like a huge run. Because if you look at 1987 through, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago that the 320 was adopted, and time slips away as you get older, so it may have been longer than that. But nonetheless, the M9 had a very short service life in terms, especially in comparatively to a 1911. And this gun, whether you love it or hate it or not, and I mentioned it earlier, the amount of evolution and the amount of people that have become obsessed with the 1911, and then we get 2011s and double stacked firearms and all this other stuff based off of this one platform that served the US military for so long. It is really amazing to see how many new shooters and generations are getting obsessed with the 1911. And to me, it's still a relevant platform, especially with the craze of 2011s that is going on. And I'll get into that in another video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. My cat's trying to get into the garage because he's needy. So yeah, bye guys. Anyone want to come over and clean this crap up for me? No? Okay, I probably need to edit that out. All right.